Story time!
As Pinkie Pie hugged her three sisters, tears of happiness filled her eyes. She sniffled, then pulled away gently.
I gotta introduce you to every pony, she exclaimed. I suppose we should start with my friends downstairs first.
Inky, Blinky, and Minky looked a little apprehensive, but nodded all the same. The four Pie sisters went downstairs and into the bakery. Mr. and Mrs. Cake had been conversing quietly, but looked up and stopped quickly upon seeing Pinkie Pie with the strange and intimidating mares. "So, Pinkie," said Mrs. Cake nervously, who are these ponies? You said sisters, didn't you?"
"Oh, yes," said Pinkie Pie. "This is Inky Pie, Blinky Pie, and Minky Pie."
"That's cute," said Mr. Cake, also anxious. "Your names all rhyme."
"I just met Minky Pie," Pinkie continued, seeming to not hear Mr. Cake's comment. "She's our oldest sister, and she was lost, but now we're all together."
"And how long will you be staying, girls?" Mrs. Cake asked the sisters tentatively. "Well," said Blinky Pie in her unnecessarily harsh and bossy tone, "we were hoping to stay for a while since we haven't seen Pinkamena for over a decade. And our parents back at the rock farm seem to have disappeared," Inky Pie added, trying to look sad, but was unsuccessful. "Oh dear," Mrs. Cake murmured. "Well, we'll be happy to have you here in Ponyville."
"That's terrific!"
Pinkie Pie squeaked. "But, Pinkie Pie," said Mrs. Cake suddenly, "will 5 of you really fit in your room?" "5?" repeated Inky Pie.
"No problem,"
said Pinkie with a wave of her hoof.
"There's plenty of space in the layer of Pinkie."
She giggled and then suddenly called,
"Apple Bloom, Derpy, I have some ponies I'd like you to meet."
Inky Pie and Blinky Pie exchanged looks, and Minky Pie bowed her head, her dark mane covering her face. Derpy and Apple Bloom came out of the back room, the cake spools on Derpy's back. They spotted the newcomers, blinking curiously. Minky Pie was shuffling her front hooves nervously, and then suddenly bolted upstairs. "Overstimulated," said Inky with a sigh. "Poor thing."
"Well, let's go follow her," said Pinkie Pie. "Come on, girls!"
She beckoned to Derpy and Apple Bloom, and Derpy handed Pound Cake and Pumpkin Cake to their parents. The ponies trotted up the stairs and into Pinkie Pie's room, where they found Minky Pie laying on Pinkie's bed, her curtain of hair still shrouding her face. "Minky," Blinky Pie said soothingly, "you all right, sweetie?" Minky Pie exposed one eye, looking at every pony in the room.
"Miss Pinkie Pie,"
said Apple Bloom cautiously,
"who are these ponies?" "Apple Bloom, Derpy," said Pinkie Pie, trotting over to Minky and stroking her mane. "These are my sisters, Inky Pie, Blinky Pie, and Minky Pie." "Wow, that's a mouthful," Apple Bloom exclaimed. "More sisters?" said Derpy, fluttering her wings excitedly. "Wow, it's like I have a whole family." Pinkie clapped her hooves and then turned to her sisters. "And this is Derpy and Apple Bloom," she said. "They're bakers, too." "That little filly?" Blinky Pie spat, and Apple Bloom cringed. "She makes the best cookies," Pinkie giggled. Just then, Derpy approached Minky Pie, staring into her exposed eye curiously. Minky looked back into Derpy's crossed yellow ones. "Are you sad?" she asked, tilting her head. Minky Pie didn't answer, continuing to stare. "Don't be sad." She started singing in the tune of Pinkie's Smile song. "My name is Derpy Hooves, and I am here to say, I wanna make you smile wide and love you in every way. It will not matter when you're sad and need a friend, 'cause you'll be wearing a great big smile in the end." "Pinkie Pie, can we speak to you?" asked Inky Pie softly, and Pinkie blinked, stepping aside with her and Blinky. Apple Bloom narrowed her eyes, not sure if she liked the sisters. "What's up?" asked Pinkie. "Are you seriously telling us that filly and that rather slow Pegasus help you bake?" asked Blinky. "Yes," said Pinkie happily. "Apple Bloom was my first assistant, and then Derpy came along. I'm really important to Derpy because she has no family, and she lives here with me now. She's like our adopted sister. Her specialty is muffins." "You really think you should trust a little filly and mentally challenged pony with a secret this big?" said Inky Pie sternly. "Oh, they're great," Pinkie Pie giggled. "Don't worry, they're pros by now. And don't call Derpy mentally challenged. She's not stupid or anything. She just thinks differently."
Well, your Derpy is harassing Minkie Pie, said Blinky angrily. Pinkie Pie turned to see Derpy still singing to Minkie Pie, whose expression was the same as it had been for the past 5 minutes.
Hey, Derpy, Pinkie Pie called. I think Minkie Pie's a little tired, so let her rest, okay?
Derpy stopped singing, looking at Pinkie, and then nodded, backing away and sitting on the floor. Apple Bloom wasn't looking very happy.
How long y'all stayin'?
She said sharply. Before any pony else could answer, Pinkie chirped up.
I hope they stay forever and ever, she squeaked.
Apple Bloom and Blinkie Pie were glaring at each other.
They do know how things work around here, right? Apple Bloom continued. With the number system and all?
Yes, we do, said Inkie Pie calmly. We sisters are the ones who came up with that system. Keep your bow on. Apple Bloom was about to retort, but they all fell silent as they heard a soft humming. It was the Smile Song.
Derpy, let Minkie rest,
said Pinkie Pie, but then saw that Derpy was sitting as silent as before. Then she looked at Minkie Pie, realizing that it was her who was humming the song. The sisters sighed in relief. Oh, I thought she had broken down, said Inkie Pie.
Minkie Pie just needed some reassurance,
said Derpy with a proud grin, trying to pronounce the word reassurance.
She was all sad 'cause she is all new and stuff, but I made her not sad.
Inkie and Blinky exchanged content grins, and it was clear that both their doubts about the Pegasus were subsiding. Miss Pinkie? Apple Bloom said slowly, and the pink pony shot her one of the happiest smiles Apple Bloom had ever seen from her.
Yes?
She replied, looking as though she was going to burst with joy. Apple Bloom couldn't seem to tell her mentor that she didn't trust her sisters. She sighed and bowed her head. Never mind.
Hey!
Pinkie squeaked suddenly, and every pony looked at her curiously.
I should introduce you to my friends.
She giggled.
Other friends. The ones who don't bake with us.
That would be lovely, said Inkie Pie.
But if any pony mentions Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie continued, remember, she was made into cupcakes. The others don't know that, so don't tell.
Okay, said Inkie and Blinky in unison.
Promise?
Promise.
Cross your heart, hope to fly, stick a cupcake in your eye?
Inkie and Blinky looked at each other again, amused at how cute and childish their youngest sister still was. There came a soft giggle, and every pony turned their attention to Minkie Pie again, who was smiling. She hopped off the bed, looking ready to go.
Cross our hearts, hope to fly, stick a cupcake in our eye, she repeated.
Pinkie Pie clapped her hooves, hopping up and down.
Yay! We're all gonna have so much fun!
With that, Pinkie Pie gave Derpy and Apple Bloom a nuzzle, and the Pie sisters headed toward the door to go back downstairs. However, before they opened it, Minkie also gave Derpy a nuzzle, and Derpy giggled. Apple Bloom, however, looked nervous as Minkie Pie approached her. Her expression was hard to read, especially under her heavy dark mane.
Apple Bloom?
She asked, making sure she got the name correct.
Yes?
Said the filly nervously. Minkie Pie gave her a smile, though it was kind and much less scary.
I look forward to knowing you better, she said softly. You and Derpy are officially my very first friends.
Apple Bloom's expression softened, and she smiled.
Sure thing, Minkie Pie!
With a nuzzle against Apple Bloom's forehead, Minkie followed her sisters out of the room and down into the bakery. Pinkie Pie's sisters were still receiving terrified looks as they walked down the streets of Ponyville, but there was also much confusion as to why these new mares were with the happiest and brightest pony in the whole town. Pinkie Pie waved hello to every pony as the 4 of them trotted toward the library, but only got half-hearted waves in return. The atmosphere was almost like when Zecora first showed up in Ponyville.
Twilight!
Pinkie sang as she burst into the library. Twilight Sparkle looked to her pink friend, but then her eyes widened at the 3 ponies accompanying her. Spike, who had been taking notes for Twilight, spotted the dark ponies and shot into his bed, hiding under the blanket. Pinkie Pie, Twilight said slowly, trying not to sound rude. Who are your friends?
They're my sisters,
Pinkie replied excitedly. She seemed to not tire of introducing them.
Inkie Pie, Blinkie Pie, and Minkie Pie. Girls, this is one of my best friends, Twilight Sparkle.
The 3 mares gave a nod in understanding, and Minkie Pie started trudging around the library, her face completely obscured by her mane once more. I thought you only had 2 sisters, said Twilight, watching the darkest sister wander around her home.
Me too, Pinkie said with a nod. It's a long story. Why don't you call the others and we'll tell you everything?
Twilight looked a little unsure and kind of nervous, but all the same she coaxed Spike out of his bed to write multiple invitations to their friends. Once he was done, he blew his emerald green fire on them and they disappeared from sight. "Minky, what are you doing, sweetie?" called Inky Pie, watching her oldest sister observe the bookshelves. Minky stopped and looked over at the other ponies, Spike once again hiding in his bed.
"I've never seen so many books,"
Minky Pie replied in her soft voice.
"I never had any as a filly."
"Meh, they're not that great," said Blinky Pie with a laugh, and Inky elbowed her sharply. "Don't ruin this for her," she spat. "This is her chance to actually see the world." I know, Blinky whined, sitting on the floor and crossing her arms. "Don't get your tail in a knot." Just then, there was a soft knock at the door, and before Twilight could answer it, Pinkie Pie shot forward and flung it open.
"Hi!"
She squealed at Applejack, Fluttershy, and Rarity. All three of them looked perplexed. "Hi, Pinkie," said Applejack slowly. "We got notes from Twilight."
"Come in!"
With a massive hop, Pinkie Pie turned from them and into the middle of the room. Her friends walked in, Fluttershy closing the door behind them, and looked around. "It's, quite a party here," said Rarity slowly, spotting the three strange ponies. Pinkie Pie continued to hop around, smiling wider than she had since she killed Rainbow Dash.
"Girls! Girls!"
cried her high voice.
"Meet my sisters!"
Once again, Pinkie Pie was bombarded with questions, but this time, she, Inky, and Blinky teamed up to tell the whole story. They left out the details about the cupcakes, of course. When the story had been told, Pinkie Pie's friends were teary-eyed, even poor Spike, who had finally come out of his bed. Twilight Sparkle watched Pinkie Pie, who was still looking at the books, and then walked over to her. "Would you like one?" she asked, and Minky's sunken eyes rested on the unicorn. "I can't read," she muttered. This broke Twilight's heart even more. "Don't worry, Sugar Cube," said Applejack with a kind smile. "As long as you're here, we'll take care of you." "It's too bad she didn't get to meet Rainbow Dash," said Spike softly, and the room was tense. The Pie sisters had perfect poker faces on, all except Pinkie, who still looked quite cheerful.
"She would have been all like, 'Chin up, Minkie Pie! Let me show you my awesome moves!'"
She giggled and Minkie Pie managed to smile. However, it wasn't the kind one she had given Apple Bloom earlier. It was malicious. "What happened to Rainbow Dash?" she asked in a slow, sickly sweet voice. "We don't know," said Rarity, bowing her head slightly. "She just disappeared weeks ago, and we haven't heard anything from her." "We even tried contacting Gilda," Twilight continued, "but she seemed to have been missing for months." "I'm sure this Dash was a nice pony," said Blinky Pie, though her tone was somewhat sarcastic. "I hope she comes back," whispered Fluttershy, who missed her fellow Pegasus most of all. "If she left, she probably had a good reason," Inky Pie explained. "Like, maybe she just got sick of you." Twilight, Rarity, Fluttershy, and Applejack looked startled and offended at the remark. "She'd never just leave us without warning!" Applejack exclaimed, glaring at Inky. "She was a loyal and trusting friend! She loved us!" "Sorry," said Blinky Pie, patting Inky firmly on the head. "Sometimes she says things that she doesn't mean." Pinkie Pie was looking a little nervous.
"It's been so long since my sisters have been around lively ponies," she squeaked. "It might be difficult to adjust, but that's okay, 'cause I know a batch of cupcakes will make it all better."
"Speaking of," said Applejack, her attention now turned to Pinkie, "where's my sister?"
"Playing with Derpy back at Sugar Cube Corner,"
the pink pony replied.
"We were all playing with the cake skulls when my sisters arrived, and Apple Bloom stayed behind while we introduced them to you."
"She's sure been spending a lot of time at the bakery," Applejack continued. "Does she really want to be a baker? She tried that before and it didn't give her a cutie mark."
"Yeah," Pinkie replied. "She's really good at it. I'm sure she's close to getting her mark."
"We're going to bake too," added Inky Pie. "That's what we'd do for fun when dear Pinkamena left us. Now it'll be nice to work in a real bakery." There was a sudden shrill scream from across the room, and every pony whipped their heads around to see Fluttershy cowering in front of Minky Pie, whose face was obscured again. "Fluttershy," said Rarity nervously, "what happened?" Fluttershy stood quickly and flew over to her friends, hiding behind them and staring at Minky. She scares me," she muttered shakily. What? said Inky and Blinky together, looking miffed. "What did she do?" Twilight asked quickly. "She smiled at me," Fluttershy replied. "Smiled?" Rarity repeated. "Fluttershy?" "You didn't see it. It wasn't a normal smile." Just then, Minky Pie approached her sisters, staying close to them, her head bowed. "Hey!" Blinky Pie shouted. "Be nice! She spent her whole life trapped in a cellar!" "I'm sure Minky was just trying to be your friend, Fluttershy," Applejack cooed, and then she too watched the eldest sister. Minkie Pie lifted her head slightly, her mane shifting to reveal one green eye, and she gave Pinkie's friends a smile. The air became cold as ice, room silent with fear and apprehension. Applejack didn't want to admit that she was creeped out, so she let out a tiny laugh. "There you go, Sugar Cube," she said, voice trembling. "We're all your friends now, okay?"
"I look forward to getting to know you all,"
Minkie Pie replied, but it was in an acid tone, much unlike the one she had used with Apple Bloom. However, her intimidating demeanor was interrupted by a large yawn that she couldn't stifle. Rubbing her eyes, she looked at Pinkie Pie.
"Aww,"
she cooed.
"Little Minky Winky is sleepy weepy."
"We've all had a long journey," Inkie Pie said with a nod. "We really should rest. Besides, Minkie's not used to exerting so much energy. She's got to take time to recover from that awful cellar."
"Okay, let's go back home then,"
said Pinkie excitedly.
"We'll see you all later, okay? Maybe we'll have a party soon to welcome my sisters to Ponyville."
"Bye," said her friends together, all sounding quite unsure. After the Pie sisters had left, Applejack immediately turned to the others. "Something about those ponies ain't right," she said firmly. "I concur," Rarity exclaimed. "The first two are extremely rude, and that Minkie Pie is absolutely terrifying." "I know, girls," Twilight Sparkle sighed, "but they're Pinkie's family, and we just gotta get used to them. Maybe they're not all that bad."
"That smile, though,"
said Fluttershy, still trembling. "Maybe she doesn't know her smile is scary," Twilight continued, though she looked anxious. "I mean, she's spent years trapped in the dark with no upbringing. She doesn't exactly know the ways of the road yet." "I don't care what you say," said Spike, a chill running up his back. "I don't want to go anywhere near those three."